Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now you would think in the wake of After Earth, no studio would want to touch Will Smith because that was not only a box office disaster but also a critical embarrassment. Just nobody could defend that film. Although I think all of us would have said, don't get into bed with M. Night Shyamalan, Will Smith, no good can come from it. But anyway, studios, it seems, are perfectly happy to continue to work with Will Smith, probably because of that overseas gross for Men in Black 3. Yes, while it only did about $140 million here in the United States, it did almost $450 million in foreign box office, which is a take of almost $700 million. And it just proves that Will Smith is still a huge draw overseas. And I have to say, he really does earn it because he works very hard to promote his films overseas. He does the world tour, which a lot of other actors are somewhat reluctant to do because it's a huge commitment and time commitment, and it's time they could be spending making other movies or with their families. But as you know, Will Smith's entire family is very business oriented, which I think to some degree is his downfall, which we'll get into a second. But anyway, Men in Black. I think there's rumors of another Men in Black. Hancock 2 has been greenlit. Bad Boys 3 is coming along. He's making a film for Warner Brothers called Focus with Margot Robbie from Wolf of Wall Street. But he just got another deal. And you have to really also hand it to Will Smith because he produces a lot of these films. So he's in there again, working very hard to convince the studios to give him another chance. And I'm sure it doesn't take that much convincing with that Men in Black 3 box office, as I just said. But he signed on for a new film with 20th Century Fox, yet another studio getting onto the Will Smith bandwagon, and it's called The City That Sailed. And basically the plot, apparently, is that this daughter in London misses her father so much, who's in New York City, that she emotionally can pull the island of Manhattan, for real, across the Atlantic towards her. And Will Smith is taking the ride. Now, a lot of people are already joking that Willow Smith will play the daughter. I don't know about that because Willow Smith has made it very clear that she's not really into the entertainment business, and I think that's a little unfortunate. I get the feeling she doesn't have a huge amount of self-esteem, which is really a shame because I think she's very likable. I even liked her song, Whip My Hair, and so I would hate to think that the internet might have bullied her out of participating in the family business, but that's a whole nother story and just largely a guess or a feeling on my part. But I just think that Will Smith needs to take a break from his family. He took a huge break from acting to build up Jaden's career with The Karate Kid, which he and his wife Jada Pinkett Smith produced. And that was very successful. But then I think he turned around and hurt his son almost as much as he helped him with the After Earth film. And then there were rumors that there were Scientology aspects to it because, of course, Will Smith is close friends with Tom Cruise. And I think he just needs to get away from all that and just get back to the business of being Will Smith, which he's very good at, and people like seeing him do. So I think that even if Willow maybe does want to be in this movie, I think, and if she doesn't want to be an Annie, which was, I think they said she was too old for it. I don't know. I've seen set photos. Quvenzhané Wallis looks pretty big. She's grown a lot since Beast from the Southern Wild. She doesn't look like a small kid so much that I think maybe Willow Smith could have done the role. But anyway, I think Will Smith needs to stop working with his family and just focus on, as I said, making a great movie. But I don't know how much, this is almost like I Am Legend, the fantasy version. I don't really know how compelling this sounds to me. But it's going to have a lot lighter tone than I Am Legend because the person signed on to direct is Sean Levy. And he directed the Night at the Museum movies. So it sounds to me like this, will it be a comedy? I don't really know how much comedic stuff that you can take out of the majesty of the island of Manhattan floating across the Atlantic, because I have to say, except for the visuals from like a bird's eye view, I don't know how exciting that would be. I don't know, unless you're like going to do a King of the World Jack and Rose style, maybe down at Battery Park. I think that's about as funny as it maybe could get, because it's just going to feel like you're on just a very a cruise with a lot to do on it. All right, so that's the first story of the day. But speaking of Night at the Museum 3 is shaping up, and that's what Sean Levy will be doing first. And it's been announced that a lead role will be Lancelot, because this version is going to take place in London, which has, of course, some really wonderful museums. The first one was the Museum of Natural History in New York, a fabulous museum. I am a member. Also, then they went to the Smithsonian, of course, natural choice, the famous group of museums in Washington, D.C. And now I think going to London is very smart. There's some wonderful artifacts there, and London is a really cinematic town. And also, appeals to the European audience. But anyway, Lancelot is going to be a major character in the film, and none other than Dan Stevens from Downton Abbey has signed on to play him. And this is fascinating because Dan Stevens left Downton Abbey quite dramatically. They had to kill him off on the Christmas special, no less, which many people in the UK, because it aired here a lot later than Christmas, because we get suckily, we have to wait for our Downton Abbey. But apparently a lot of people did not enjoy seeing Dan Stevens' character killed off for their Christmas entertainment, and it made him a little bit of enemies, turned some of his fans against him. And I think also people are upset that he looks so different. He's drastically changed the way he looked. He's manorexic. He's lost a considerable amount of weight and dyed his hair black for some reason. I don't know why. He looks drastically different, and I think that it's going to be hard for him to trade off of his Downton Abbey fandom if he doesn't even look like the character he played there. But he was in The Fifth Estate, and he was actually pretty good there, so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Amy Adams, this was like one of her steps to superstardom, and this is just a big marquee role for Dan Stevens. We'll see how he does in a comedy opposite Ben Stiller, but it could be good for him if the film does well. The Night at the Museum movies are successful, no matter what people might think of them off the cuff. So I think it's a good idea for him to do it. I'll be interested to see if maybe this can, put Dan Stevens in good favor again. Lancelot is a wonderful role. It's supposed to be played by a heartthrob, obviously. I wonder if you guys think that Dan Stevens still fits the bill, and if you think that he can ever get over leaving a successful show like Downton Abbey, and did he really need to? Because, British shows are different. They shoot them, in spurts. But he's one of a number of casts. I just reviewed the Winter's Tale trailer a couple days ago with Jessica Brown Findlay, I believe, or Findlay Brown, who also had to be killed off on the show. If you want to leave Downton Abbey, you have to leave. There's no chance of you coming back. She also died because she had to leave and wanted to make movies. So we'll see if these people made the right choice, or they should have stuck with Downton Abbey, that continues to be a ratings juggernaut, both in the UK and here in the United States, and has been greenlit for yet another season already. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story is a fun story about the fact that something that's catching on are these live concerts where an orchestra will perform the score of a film live in front of an audience. Now, I think that's wonderful, and I think it's, as people are saying, it's giving some much-needed attention to cinematic scores and soundtracks, which are really fantastic. And I've actually been to one of these, and I'm curious to how many of you have been to them, because they're starting to have them all over the country and all over the globe. While a big deal is made about New York Philharmonic's Stanley Kubrick concert, that was actually part of a two-night event, and a two-concert event. I think both played for 2 nights. And I went to the Bernard Herrmann one, which, it was Bernard Herrmann, but it was largely the films of Alfred Hitchcock. And they played clips from the films with the music accompanying it. And it was really a phenomenal thing to do. Now, there are 2 different kinds of concert films they're doing. They're doing where they play clips that showcase the soundtrack. It's really like a clip show with different pieces of scores. Or sometimes they play the entire film that are films that are soundtrack score heavy, and they do the whole soundtrack live. For instance, I wish I could have gone to this. They apparently did one for The Nightmare Before Christmas with not only a live orchestra, but live singers, and Danny Elfman himself was there to do all the singing for Jack Skellington live, which is phenomenal. And actually, interestingly, this concert was set up by his talent agency with the hopes of maybe starting something that could be not only fun for Danny Elfman's fans, but obviously a revenue stream for both him and his representation. So maybe this was something they'll take on the road, and I think it's nice for Danny Elfman to get front and center. He's really talented, and A Nightmare Before Christmas is one of the most wonderful things about it is its score. So I think this is a wonderful idea. I think it's so wonderful that it's catching on. I think it adds a whole new dimension to film, and I think it's always nice to do something like this. It's a little highbrow and sophisticated. It's fun. I remember I've only started recently going to see performances like this. I also saw Gustave Dudamel I'm trying to get more involved in the museums around my community, and I actually recommend that to anybody here. Just become a member and start going out more. I think you'll find it rewarding ultimately. And so I think that Lincoln Center, I felt like I was in a Hitchcock movie. So I think that's why it was fitting to go and see a performance of the score of Hitchcock films, because it's like that famous scene from The Man Who Knew Too Much. You really feel like, it feels like you think it's something people don't do anymore, but they do. They just kind of do it in secret off to the side from the mainstream, and they're having a good time, so we should go join them. And it's great that they're not being snotty about it, and they're taking in, kinds of music that film fans love, and they're it doesn't have to just appeal. But I would say to you that if you can get a really good conductor, just hearing a good classical concert can be really phenomenal as well. And if you're in the Los Angeles area or Gustavo Dudamel is coming to a town near you, you should check him out as well. All right, so that's the 3 stories of the day. The viewer question comes from Scarlett Helps. And Scarlett Helps says, hey Grace, great show. Thanks, Scarlett. Just a quick silly question. There are no silly questions. Since Disney is choosing to make The Princess Bride into a musical, I was wondering what your first thoughts when the Spider-Man musical came out. I had heard it was a complete flop and embarrassment. I think you didn't hear totally wrong there, Scarlett Helps. I feel that it was on the surface a total and complete embarrassment, not only for Marvel, but also for Julie Taymor, who ended up being fired from the show, and I think that really hurt her career, and she's very bitter about it. I just read the other day that she's done a production of the Midsummer Night's Dream, which has characters fly around Spider-Man style. I guess that's her revenge show, because that's what she came up with, which is, you know, the selling point of the Spider-Man musical. But also apparently her Midsummer Night's Dream makes fun of the Lion King musical, which I just think is really kind of a jerky move, considering the Lion King musical, directing that is what put her on the map creatively and in the business. So come on, Julie Taymor, Lion King didn't do anything to you. Maybe it did, that I don't know about. But anyway, she was fired from Spider-Man. But I think that was her fault, though, to some degree, because she wouldn't make changes and when the show was so poorly reviewed. Now, I've actually seen the Spider-Man musical, which is why I picked this question. Now, here's the thing. The second half of the show was truly horrible. And when I left the theater, I remember distinctly hearing a small child turning to their father, I think it was a little, I don't remember if it was a boy or a girl, but saying, trying to ask for some explanation, saying, what happened at the end again? And I remember very distinctly because the father said, I don't know, to the kid. And I thought that was hilarious that he didn't even try to fill in the blanks as best he could. He was just like, it's an unanswerable question because I don't really think anything happened. But the second half of that show was just a train wreck and disaster. I ended up apologizing. I bought the tickets as a Christmas gift for my family, and I took everybody because I wanted to experience something with comic books, and it ended up just making them feel that they were right not to enjoy comics. So I was like, damn you, Spider-Man show, you've given me another hurdle or setback in trying to have my family embrace comic books. And the mainstream in general. Although I do believe that show continues to do well. It's still playing because they did a major overhaul. And it still does well, largely because of those flying sequences. Now, of course, there was that controversy about everybody being hurt, and I think someone recently was hurt again. But it still does well. It's a little bit of a bummer that it's another origin show. I don't know why they just can't tell a Spider-Man story that is just a new story, a jumping off point, if you will, from the old origin story, because it's just, who doesn't know this at this point? It's just super boring to sit through it already. But anyway, another reason I brought this up, though, is I think the first half of Julie Taymor's show was brilliant. And I think there were some beautiful set pieces. The way the costumes and the set design worked was really fascinating and really pushed the edge of the envelope. And it really was breathtaking to behold. There were some great songs, and it was really artistic. And that was another thing I liked about it. I loved seeing the comic books through the eyes of Julie Taymor. And I think because she had clearly didn't read comics, didn't have anything to do with the comic book community, and it was just such an outsider view of it. It was like asking Andy Warhol or somebody like that to interpret comics. And I loved seeing what she took away from comics, what she felt were the strong points. And so I really liked that aspect of it. And I haven't seen the reworked version, but I hope it's kept some of the stuff that she did because it really had some impressive moments. And I think that if we keep it positive, I don't think that comic books, I think it would be interesting sometimes to put them through the filter of something else and to see what others see. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you for tuning in. You write down below what you think of today's top stories, the viewer question, and what you'd like to see covered on Monday, and any questions you'd like answered. Thanks for watching. Bye.